Okay, we're recording.
Ooh, hello world. We are recording.
Okay, so what's going on with you, Darce?
It's a beautiful day here in Halifax. The sun was particularly beautiful. I think I just said that word, beautiful. Maybe because it's the right word. Um, I don't like to be hokey or fakely spiritual, but it felt like the presence of God was here today as the water was extremely calm and the smell of nature was perfect.
Mm. I remember at the cottage, we would see the some days you'd have the lake that where it was like like glass, and that's how it was always described as well. Does the Halifax Harbor ever get like that, where it's like really smooth, not even like a ripple, or is there always kind of busy stuff going on?
Yeah, it's rare to be smooth like glass. And over the past couple of months, the traffic in the harbor has been different. Some things that are unique and odd, and others that um, are just different. Container ships with very few containers. Usually you see pretty much a full load. Navy tugboats sort of just hanging out close to my window.
Cool.
Um, but I guess they were doing some repairs across the way. I'm on the Dartmouth side, so I can see in that direction the shipyards. Seems like a smart time to do some repairs if you need some repairs done.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, there is usually, you know, some amount of waves. uh, yeah, the harbor's interesting. I know it's both the ocean and it's something entirely different
Hmm.
because it does have um, massive human use implications. And I think that's why it really struck me today was I know we're using it less. There's just not as many boats cruising around. When there's a heavy downpour, there's a drainage pipe in that direction, and you can see the different color of water as it's pouring into the harbor. Um, and what that shows to me is on a daily basis, you can see all the human impact in the harbor, and it's not as clear until these moments come along where you're like, oh wow, it's just so calm, and we're not fucking it up right now.
I see.
Yeah,
So
there's yeah.
when you were talking about different colors, I didn't know if you meant like in an artistic way of being like, like the beautiful different colors, or like being the different colors being like the green and like toxic green purpley
Hmm.
sludge that you're talking about. Or
I was talking about the natural colors that it's supposed to be.
hmm,
As if I've been looking at this harbor for years and seeing the wrong color. Um, and of course, what I see mostly right now is animals using the harbor,
hmm,
ducks. There's these little birds that love to hang out in the tree here, and they have a yellow body. And it's as if I've never seen these birds before, ever. And I'm like, I'm sure they must have lived close by for years. But somehow, when they land on that tree, the yellow is just so bright. It's either they've been there the whole time and as beautiful as they should be, or I didn't take the time to look, or maybe things are just a lot cleaner. And that's one of the things on my mind today a lot is the environment. There's this film going around that Michael Moore produced, and it's causing a lot of stirs because a lot of environmentalists are taking it in, I don't know, a negative context, whereas other environmentalists are taking it in a positive context.
Are you talking about the effects of the pandemic, the effects of COVID-19 right now?
No, it's it's related to that. But this film is called Planet of the Humans.
Oh, when did it come out? Sorry.
Well, it's on YouTube. It was just recently, like it's probably been on YouTube for maybe a week.
Oh, geez Louise. Yeah, okay, never mind. I wouldn't know.
Yeah, super recent,
Okay.
and really interesting film, as it's not actually entirely about the environment. It's not entirely about environmentalism. It's actually about industrial capitalism, and taking it through the lens of, if we expect to clean up our environment using the same system of industrial capitalism, we might fail. Indeed, we might keep wanting to generate more and more and more and more energy. If that energy trajectory keeps going up, we can't build enough solar panels, enough windmills. It just keeps ramping off the scale as the planet's population goes from 8 to 9 to 10 to 11 to 12 to however many billion that we think we can get away with on this planet. And that idea of infinite growth on a finite planet, we just have to face that and go, oh yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a bunch of stuff in there even to unpack, even though maybe we're focusing on one particular idea that you were thinking about. But what about the movie was controversial? Like, is it? Yeah.
It was critical of many environmentalists, many famous environmentalists, who have been championing, that's a tough word, championing. Yeah, they've been rooting for windmills and solar panels.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so it used a lot of the arguments that are typically used by people on, let's call it the right wing, who criticize the environmental movement. And they say, okay, well, solar panels use a lot of rare crystals and all kinds of mining. You need I'll just simplify it. You need a ton of resources still extracted to build a physical solar panel, and the batteries and all the connections and all that. Now, I think they took it out of context because, yes, overall, solar is likely to use less of the planet's resources, but we're not talking about a lot less, because you still got to go out there and mine it. You still got to burn a lot of fossil fuels to have these big industrial trucks and have fires that burn really fucking hot to make this shit mold itself together. And these are the arguments that often come from the right wing to say, yeah, it'll never work. And I think what it is, it's a moment for environmentalists to face to the fact that, okay, there's part of what they're saying is right, and part of what they're saying is also wrong. And I think that's something I've been thinking about for years, is learning how to come at people, acknowledge what they're being right about, and also then point out what they are less than correct about. I don't even want to use the word wrong,
Yeah, might be too offensive.
I don't know. People get freaked out when it's like wrong. Here's a concept that really I think people got to wrap their minds around, because I think it's true. I think it's undeniably true that every single human being is wrong about basically everything. It's impossible to have all the information to be 100% correct on anything.
Mm-hmm.
There are just so many different points of view of any particular problem. Now you can do a scientific analysis of a particular problem and say, yes, this is more correct than the other method. So that's what I think the problem is here is, yes, it is true that windmills and solar and geothermal and all these other greener technologies are, yes, a little bit greener. So that is correct. It's a little bit greener, but it's also correct that we are looking at it on this massive industrial scale that's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of investment and a lot of pollution to achieve. The underlying point is we got to start getting more comfortable with being happy with less. And we might be here. We might be here already. I certainly know future generations, they're going to know it, like in your face, know it, that it's, wow. Here's one way that I put it is, how many square feet should each human being feel comfortable sort of having domain over? I don't even really want to say ownership. I look at the room you're sitting in and I'm like, well, I guess that's what, 300 square feet? I don't know. Is it enough for one human being to feel safe in the world, be sheltered from the elements? And that's enough. What I certainly know is you see these gigantic mansions where, you know, like one human being is using up, 30,000 square feet for one house. I'm like, yeah, that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Eventually you're going to run out of square feet.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, because like what I was just thinking, and this might be like a completely terrible comparison or whatever to what you're saying, but like you were asking how much space would be appropriate for someone to occupy to feel comfortable, to feel safe, and that sort of thing, to live. And I was like, I suppose that's also relative to different people, because I was thinking more in regards to, well, are we talking about what's more appropriate in a social environment, like what's fair for each person, or what does each person, what's the maximal amount that someone can use without interfering with the disruption of the planetary cycles? I don't know. That's probably jumping to the extreme, but
that's
so
fair.
I didn't quite go into the what's fair or what's appropriate for each person to have on a social level, but more of like on a psychological level, the differences in personality, for example. And you could go down the road of saying, oh, some people just have bigger egos and need bigger houses, and that would be bad, and that's not the right. That's not the first thought that I thought of, but it was a follow-up thought. The initial thought that I had was like, well, I think we're built. Oh, two things maybe. Like we're built to kind of look for more. But that was the thought that just popped into my head right now. But like, what about people who are claustrophobic? I know it sounds kind of stupid, but would the space that someone needs to occupy be dependent on each individual personality? Like this person, their psychological temperament can be in a small space and they can be completely satisfied, and then another person can't. But if that other person can't, what are the reasons for it? Is it because they have a big ego and they like are just, they go stir crazy and they're like, no, I need my space, man. Like, for me, I would love to live on an acreage, but that would be land that I occupy, right? But that's a goal that I have in the future. Yeah, what do you think of that? Is that like a wrong thing,
yeah.
or is that?
Go back to the idea of trying to use the word wrong more appropriately. It's not necessarily wrong. And there's a lot in there. So there's the land part, and then there's the sort of, utility part of space. And I do separate these into two different categories. There is the outdoor land and nature, and maybe call that sort of stewardship over natural lands. And I think that's a pursuit that we need to take in some serious sort of way. Now, there's one school of thought which says that ownership of that land leads to better stewardship of that land. Yet we see over and over again that it's not necessarily what they do with it, because ownership right now is with the embedded goal to make it profitable. And so you have ownership of large swaths of land, and what they do is extract all the resources and make a disaster out of it, rather than actually taking care of it. So the meaning of taking care of that land from our systemic perspective is to, yes, rip out all the trees, dig up all the valuable things, and sell them. And then what's left at the end, I don't know. There's very few examples we have of lands that have been ripped apart by the profit motive, that have been like for a long enough time. Like, the Brazilian rainforest, we haven't been digging it up for 4,000 years yet. So we don't know that next step. We already are at the step where some people, try to, regenerate growth in forests and all that. But we're talking about minuscule timescales compared to the natural world. The natural world works on tens of thousands of year timescales, and we are but this tiny sliver of nothingness. Yet to connect that back to, I'm going slightly back to just the crispness of the air and the beauty and the calmness of the water today, that it's remarkable to me that in these short 2 months, how much of a difference it has made for essentially the entire modern world to stop making a mess.
So is that just because there's not as much import and export right now?
Nobody's driving their cars, nobody's flying, nobody's buying luxury items right now. Consumption is just, down in the toilet.
Actually, I might riff off that for a second, because while we talk and while I have conversations with people too, often I'll have like images of the people who have influenced me pop into my mind with all the tools that they possess. So for example, do you know who Gary Vaynerchuk is?
Never heard of him, no.
So he is a kind of social media marketing guru type, but he's major huge, but he has a totally different approach to business and marketing, and his mentality is kind of suggesting that, I'd rather you live on like $30,000 to $50,000 a year doing what you love, like you wake up every morning and you just can't freaking like contain yourself. You're so pumped to do what you're doing. I'd rather you do that than be, making 100, 200,000 a year as a high class lawyer in some big city, or, you know, 3 or 400,000 doing whatever with the pipeline business, CEO of this or that or whatever. He said, you know, anyways, that's his mentality.
Yep.
Like the hustler type. And why did I mention that? Oh yeah, he was putting some stuff out on social media recently where he said, you know what? It pisses me off that people are buying so much, because he was talking to all these connections that he has of like maybe who he coached or whatever, or counseled, who are like texting him and messaging him and saying like, hey man, my e-commerce site is just blowing the F up right now. It's just like going nuts. And he's hearing this, and then he puts out a post to social media that says, and he like curses and swears and stuff on his, like his mentality is like truth. You know, we were talking about truth earlier, I think. Anyways, he says you got to be honest with yourself, which is why I'm hoping to do this with you, kind of thing, just to like 100% improvised, you know, throw it out on the table raw and real. But he was like getting frustrated with people being like, yo, we're sitting in quarantine and like people are just consuming, like buying stuff online and stuff like that. So not to downplay what you were saying about how things are different now. I know, and actually I don't know. That's the small little bit of information that I know in regards to, and maybe that's just on Silicon Valley or whatever it is that they have that. But yeah.
Well, yeah, and yeah, there are two distinct worlds happening right now. Approximately 20% of North Americans are unemployed, and that's the official unemployment. Then you start adding in all the others. Basically, you can break it down to about 50-50. So it's very interesting times. And 50% of the people are financially secure, and they really haven't changed much of anything. So this person you mentioned, they're right. There are people who are still continuing to consume, but then there's the other people. They've stopped. It's off. They don't have anything. They are not going anywhere. They are not spending anything more because it just doesn't exist. And so you see this around the planet, what I was talking about in terms of the environment, the impact to the environment is consumption is way down as a whole. With half of the population, it's down to zero. And the other half of the population, the consumption is high, but the consumption of all the extras to get it is lower. So essentially, there we go. There's my little graph. Because this half of the planet went to there, this half of the planet went to there. So essentially, we're at like 20% of emissions or less. You know, like nobody's going anywhere. So. So anyways, I'm not sure where my point was in all of that, but it's amazing how this short period of time has made such dramatic impacts to environmental systems, and it sort of proves like, oh man, and this is why this film is so important. Is it proves the point that going an industrial production route to try to minimize impacts on the environment might be destined to failure, and the real solution is to do less on a global scale.
Okay.
Like everyone needs to stop driving your car around for no reason. Okay, I'll put it on a personal level. I have to suck it in deep and realize, you know what? I might have to sacrifice flying to Calgary to see my family. Like, it's on a personal level as well. I read this thing, it was actually a long time ago, about how we will destroy the planet's environment through love. Because as we love each other scattered around the planet, that will make sure that we don't reduce our consumption, that we always will get on that plane to go see our family members. We will always send shit across the world that is unnecessary. We will always buy trinkets and crap on Christmas. So this is the kind of thing that I've just been thinking a lot about. So the space issue is really critical. There is the outdoor space. How much should human beings actually be not entitled to? I don't want to use the word entitled. What is the amount of space that humans are a fit? What do they match with the rest of the species of the world? Because if there's fucking too many of us, all the other species are going to die. And if all the other species die, guess who dies next?
Yeah, we already pooched that one, I feel like.
Yeah, we already pooched that one. Well, a friend of mine out in California, he's starting to raise bees on his property. Yeah. So he's like, this was the change point for him. He's going full hippie.
Oh, you mean because of what's happening now, he's going full hippie and doing bees?
Well, yeah, he's always been a farmer. He grows his own weed.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's had fig trees and a bunch of stuff, but it feels like they're just going total hippie lifestyle, and they're done. They're done.
Like this was the push they needed to like fully dive in.
Yeah, and it makes sense, because it almost feels like maybe they just don't have a choice anymore. When 50% of your lifestyle is sort of organic off the land, and then the other 50% in the financial world goes, in the normal capitalist world, it's irrelevant at this point. So it's like, well, we got no choice. We just have to make 100% hippie.
100% hippie.
Yeah, we have no choice. We're living on this farm in California, and what do we do? I guess we just raise more chickens and hope for the best.
Well, that's really interesting. Maybe I'll take a tangent off into food, because I have certain interests that I'm super areas or whatever. One of them is like nutrition, and that's such a complex freaking subject to figure out. Because there's like vegans and there's carnivores and there's all kinds of different things, paleo and ketogenic diet, and they're all trying to figure out what's the best thing. And the more I start to like learn and realize about nutrition, I'm like, holy smokes, it's just a never ending pit of things. But it seems as though more of the, doing things like grass-fed beef, for example, is really beneficial for your body, and it's really a lot more healthier for you, and it's better for the environment, because usually grass-fed beef are on micro farms and things like that. And also, another thing that I'm interested in terms of like body health, mind health, spiritual health too. But I read a book called The Blue Zone Solution, and it talked about like longevity and people who live the longest. And usually, one big factor that I'm like super big on is social connections, being connected with a community. But the other one is kind of how they lived their life, like diet and lifestyle. And the kind of it was interesting because the lives of, they called them centenarians, people who
Yep.
lived over a century. These people, their lives were based around the food. Like their lives were surrounded by food, farming and agriculture, like digging in the weeds, and that's like exercise. That's movement for your body, um, shepherding, like herding sheep, things like that. And then of course you're like raising chickens, raising sheep, or like farming. And they said that's the best way, and like feeding, not all the hyper processed and factory farming or big industrial type of farming. It's bad for the environment. It's also bad for the body. So lately, because of all this, I've been like had a really intense interest on just digging right in to like how do we make farming? How do we do farming in a kind of in a semi, like for me myself, it's like a semi-urban environment, and for you, that's more of like a fully urban environment, right?
Well,
Or
yeah, I'm in an apartment, so the hurdles to get over are just higher. They're
Mhm.
much harder. But yeah, it really does take a sort of a semi-revolution for people just to say, you know what, we're just going to go out in our yard. We're going to start fucking digging it up. I don't give a shit what the government says about it. We're going to start growing stuff here. And if they want to, come down and say that this is cutting into the profits of the food manufacturers, because that's why these laws actually exist, is they don't want to have competition for the Kellogg's Corporation or any other giant corporation, which don't actually make food. They manufacture food. There's a process putting all these component parts together to manufacture your food, put it in boxes and bags, and put it on the shelf so that you can purchase it. And the old way of just getting food from, nature to our mouths is basically gone. Now, there are some people who are being courageous. Of all fucking people, Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, is talking about loosening all those restrictions for urban farming.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm
Wow.
like, good for you, man. Good for you. Because here's a concept I've been thinking about a lot is people misunderstand conservatism. And you think of Doug Ford, he's he's a hard-nosed conservative.
Hmm.
Well, in some respects he is, and yes, in some respects he's a pig, and in some respects he doesn't see the bigger picture, and he's like, it's always reduce costs, and it's the same old conservative, just very very sort of limited scope.
Mhm.
However, that's not to say that conservative thinkers don't understand the fundamental things. When the chips are down,
Mm.
we need conservative thinkers to come in and say, fuck this. I don't give a fuck what the government says. No, these are more like libertarian thinkers. Like, fuck you. We're digging up my fucking front yard. I don't care what your stupid city ordinance says. We're building a farm here. If you keep coming back, you know,
Yeah.
so there's something to be said of a libertarian point of view. However, it makes it a completely different topic.
Yeah.
But socialists as well actually kind of want the same things. It's just we use two entirely different sets of language. Socialists over here, libertarians over there, use
Hmm.
entirely different language to say the same damn thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I watched a video, and okay, so Ben Shapiro is a guy who either you like absolutely hate or absolutely love.
I'm more on the hate.
Yeah. I
Go
figured
on.
that might be the case, but um, let's not be afraid to be offensive, I guess. So,
No, fuck
but
him.
Yeah.
His best skill is that he keeps talking so goddamn quickly that you can't keep up with what he's saying, and he says about 17 things in every point that he says, so it's really hard to pick apart what he's fucking saying. It's
Yeah,
like, oh,
that's
slow
true.
down.
Yeah, he's pretty, man, yeah.
Yeah.
He's fast talker.
Yeah.
But one thing, so I watched a video with him and probably two other guys that you probably really dislike, but I won't even go there. But
You'd be surprised.
just bit my tongue. Literally, I mean. Anyways, I'll try to stay on topic. So he was saying I think what he was trying to say was that there's a difference between right and left political spectrums, but also there's a difference between left-leaning and liberal or libertarian, like liberal-minded thinking. And correct me if I messed that up. I don't know if like.
Oh yeah, there's a huge difference.
And he was saying that like there's lots of liberals that they're not afraid. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Anyways, I'll keep going on this. Is that he was saying, "Ow, I really bit my tongue."
Damn, are you bleeding?
No, it just it went numb, and I realized it was really thick over there, and I was like, "Oh,
does it taste good?"
Tastes all right, I suppose.
I shouldn't be laughing at your expense.
Yeah. But Ben Shapiro was saying that the basic argument that leftists said, that he quoted leftists, was that they tend to, before the argument even starts, they try to put you down by telling you that you're a bad person before the argument even starts. And him saying that, and then also because if you can frame someone in a way that says that they're a bad person, then before you even talk about the logistics of the argument, then they're already shone in a light that says you're a this or that or the other thing. But it gave me some freedom because I always thought of myself as more of like a liberal. But lately I've been almost defining myself more on the right political spectrum just because of some of the like, well, things are pretty crazy right now on a lot of different topics. So it gave me the freedom to kind of be like, okay, I can still, I can make up my own mind, I suppose. And maybe to like put a title, a political title or ideology title on your political beliefs limits you in what you're able to, where you lie.
Absolutely.
What's true to you.
Absolutely. So the labels we use are just not complete. I like to blow people's minds and say, well, you know what? I'm a socialist libertarian. What the fuck does that mean? Well, yeah, all of it's meaningless bullshit. So these labels that we put on ourselves, it denies the fact that we actually are all very, very similar. And so this is my issue actually with guys like Ben Shapiro. I'll use the thing that you just said is number one, leftist. So he groups together a very, very, very large group of people, or whatever he thinks is a large group of people, and categorizes that group of people and says, this group of people frame me in a certain way. Wait a second. Aren't you doing exactly what you're claiming they're doing? That's why I think guys like Ben Shapiro are dangerous, because his opening salvo is always to do exactly what he claims the other is doing. And that's why I feel Ben Shapiro is dangerous. He goes so quickly, and here's my actual theory, is leftists actually don't exist. There is not such a thing. It's a made up concept that guys like Ben Shapiro use to, quote unquote, win the argument, because Ben Shapiro, quite admittedly, he often talks about he wants to win the argument, and that you've got to win the debate, and that his strategy is not necessarily to be right, but to be the the loudest voice in the room. Essentially, he says it in different words. But he talks about being strong, conservative, persuasive debater. And it's like, well, okay, if that is your goal, if your goal is to win the argument, then your goal is not to seek the truth. Now, I'll listen to guys like Ben Shapiro from time to time, but he's I'd say one of the furthest on the spectrum for me to be able to listen to for a very long period of time. Because I think what he's actually up to is he's just doing his job. He's creating a product that needs to be at a certain level of internet craziness, and that's the way it sells. Now, I don't deny, though, that it doesn't have its utility in getting people engaged in issues. And I think that's always good. And something that I find really interesting is guys like Ben Shapiro will claim that leftists want to shut people down and that leftists don't want free speech. And it's like, who are we talking about? And this is why I come back to, I don't think these leftists actually exist. Now, it is true. There are a tiny, tiny group of individuals that participate in this thing that we call cancel culture. Like, you're a bad person and you're not allowed to say that and all that. I think that group of people is actually really, really, really small, but the volume that comes out of them is I call them the blue checks on Twitter, because they are people with huge followings on Twitter. So when they tweet something out that, Ben Shapiro's a bad asshole, it's like, it goes viral. And it's like, all of a sudden you think all the people who've liked that tweet actually think that. And it's like, well, nah, it's whatever. It's just stupid Twitter bullshit.
Right. Let me pose this theory. Like, as we were thinking about this is something that I've thought about before. I feel like I'm speaking with a lip because I bit my tongue, but
the sun's coming around, so I'm gonna. Whoa!
Oh, nice. We get to see your space. Whew. Got Slipknot back there. You got. Oh, I'm probably gonna get made fun of for not knowing these other ones.
That's Zeppelin. Oh, there, Zeppelin.
See,
Rush.
Should know that. Okay, Rush.
Well, you wouldn't know that. That's Calgary Beer Corps.
Oh, that's probably something that I would be more familiar with, actually.
That's the Press Gang.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Shout out to Derek.
Yeah, shout out to Derek and another Press Gang down there. But I don't want to put the camera too low, or else you'll see I'm not wearing pants. Why bother with pants? Like these days, there's no need of pants. But that's a lot of sunlight. Holy crap! Anyways, and then all my notes for videos on that wall there.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so the last video that we were talking about, I wanted to kind of be like, hey, what's your process? How do you figure things out? So maybe next time we can do something with that.
Well, I'll see how far I can get without showing the world that I'm not wearing pants. Okay.
We're going to get a full moon here today.
So over where I just came from, I take my mouse and it's up here so I can stand. This is what I do every morning is I stand at my computer. I do a lot of Twitter, but mostly I'm actually playing online poker. And I'm fucking good at online poker. I only play 2 tables at a time, which really doesn't take a lot of mental energy. Real pros, they play 8, 9, 10 tables at the same time. And they're just like, it's like madness. But I'm just playing 2 tables at a time. And I'm reading a few stories on Twitter, and I'm going back to my wall. And I'm like, oh yeah, this and that concept goes with that concept. I grab a pen, I scribble it down, I think about it for a while and make some breakfast. Every morning I am on my feet for like several hours, just, trying to get things going. I shoot most of the videos in the morning.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Man, that I love that. I love that setup. Like that's
And
how
I
my.
try to keep healthy too. Those were on my legs.
Oh, okay. Are those like tensor things or?
Oh, they're just little weights.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So it's a way to exercise while I'm just thinking my shit.
A little bit of resistance and stuff.
Yeah, they're only like, I don't know, 2.5 pounds maybe.
Nice. Man, that's
Not much.
like the setup
Yeah.
that you just described is like perfect in regards to like what I've been learning about yeah. Yeah, like longevity and stuff. It's like, all these people that go into the gym for like an hour and a half and just kill themselves. That's actually, it's not doing them any favors in the long run.
Yeah.
And so like doing stuff like, like I don't know if you can see, but there's a treadmill back
Yep.
there.
Yep.
Sometimes I'll take my laptop and just put it on there and just go a slow walk. And
Yep.
I'll like read emails or something. And then beside that, there's some weights that I just like between sessions, I'll go in there and throw some stuff around and come back just enough so you like get a little bit of energy. And that's like, that low grade exercise. It's awesome.
Totally. I've watched entire movies like with these on my arms and using these little 5-pound weights. And a whole movie. So like 2.5 hours, like standing in front of my computer screen. Just
Holy
watch the
bananas.
whole movie and just like it also helps if you smoke a joint before the movie. Then you're like, wow, this is a fucking great movie, man. Holy shit, man. And then you're like freaking out a little bit. You're like, ooh. And then at all the music parts, like when it's a really good like score for the film, you're just like, ooh. You get into the like Tai Chi mode. Ooh. And then it's like, oh, it's the action part. Oh, fuck. Yeah. So part of my process is actually it's very physical.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel the same. I want to set up this environment like that. And it's funny because I've always dreamed of being like, I just want to like live my life in a studio, kind of. Like my day job is to be in a studio.
Yep.
And now I have that. It's like it just kind of popped out of nowhere. It's like,
Yep.
now it's that's what I'm doing.
That's what you're doing.
The only thing that I feel like I wish I had a little bit more of was time to do things like this. Like the majority of the time, I'm in sessions, and so when I'm down here doing other work, it's like half hour here, half hour there, and it's a work that you kind of need to do rather than you want to do. And I want to get to the work that I want to do, the more creative work.
Yeah.
I want to incorporate more of that, but that's hard. You got to keep your space clean too, which I'm not perfect at. But yeah.
It bits and pieces though. What we talked about in the last one, big thing that I missed. This is what's great about live talking is you miss things, but then you get to walk away and figure out yeah, that's another big thing. And you asked me why do I do this and how and all of this, right? And the process of it all. It's like, why do I make a bunch of videos where I know not a lot of people are watching them? It's like, well, doing it every day makes me better at it. So you just get up and do it, and it informs me because I'm watching my face every day, editing the video, and I'm it's like, where are the little details? Where do I want to make improvements, changes? But and being efficient with your work, my goodness, that just takes time. That just takes time. And everyone's setup is completely different. We have different square footage available to us. Yeah. And, I could definitely use a little better light
Hmm.
Like this, see, this is a terrible time in the day for me to be shooting stuff because I just get way too much light from that source. Yeah. Now
What
I
about?
can shoot in different directions, like I could shoot over there using the guitar background. That's my guitar background.
Yeah, a
But
lot of your videos is in that spot, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Now I was hoping just to use that space there. Where's my finger? There it is. Yeah, that was mainly supposed to be just for music. Um, the videos I've been doing lately have a much different look.
Hmm.
Um, have you seen any of the latest videos?
I've seen a lot with like the generosity videos. The oh, what was the slogan that you used? Like the a, it's like a pandemic of generosity, an outpouring of.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
that was like the first generation of videos I made. I probably made I don't know 15 or so of those. But now I'm moving into um, a more, what would you call it? More of the social issues type things. I don't even want to call them social issues because it's just such a terrible word.
Hmm.
It's like it doesn't make any sense. But anyways, here I'll see if I can do this using the Zoom technology. Ooh, oh, okay, there we go. We'll view. We'll make this a little bit smaller, decrease size. All right. So now there's a way on here that I can just like share my screen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do? Oh, share screen. It's a big green button. It's a big fucking green button. Uh. Oh, it's asking me for permission. Uh. Basic. Yeah, whatever. Desktop one. Share. Share. Oh, I have to open system preferences. Well, that was a big pain in the ass. Well, I'll save it for some other time then.
Okay.
Oh, oh,
Well,
open system preferences. Oh, I see what. It's a fairly standard thing. Zoom just needs permission.
hmm,
Um, Zoom will not be able to record the contents of your screen until it is quit. So we will not do that now.
okay. Well, I have to go in 5 minutes, and I kind of wanted to, if you're okay with it, to riff off something you said earlier about
Sure.
titles, I think.
Titles.
Or like you were talking about Ben Shapiro talking about this leftist group, and they're like a tiny minority of people, but they're really, really quite loud.
Yeah.
And it kind of, I was actually thinking about this because I've,
And I really want to make something clear before we go too far with this.
yeah,
They're not leftists. Like in terms of the real definition of left and right, they're not on the left at all. This tiny group of people we're talking about are very comfortable American liberals is what they are. They are all about, the Me Too movement and
hmm,
those types of very social based issue. Real people on the left are all about economic issues.
hmm,
So this idea that leftists, that's what I find really disheartening about it is this word leftist keeps getting misapplied. No, people who are on the left, in a real sense of on the left, are talking about fundamental economic issues. And the social issues are what I would call in the socialist world, they're just givens. Things like, it's just like, yeah, whatever, move on. Things like gay marriage, yeah, whatever, it's legal, move on.
hmm,
I don't want to waste anyone's time debating about it. I'm just like, of course it should be legal. Who cares?
hmm,
That's the true left opinion. Let's
hmm,
move on and talk about a real issue like workers owning part of the companies that they work for so that
hmm,
they are a part of the democracy in the workplace. That's what real leftists want to talk about. Anyways, I sort of
Cool.
I sort of hijacked that moment.
No, that's okay. It's good to probably get clarity so that, when the time comes, it's needed. If it's not, then yeah.
Yeah.
And it's good for me too. Um, but I was gonna kind of comment from a psychological point of view. Um, oh man, I hope I can capture this in the next 3 minutes, or I hope I can collect my thoughts. Actually, remember what I was
Do
going to
it.
say. But I was thinking about personality disorders.
Okay.
So I I've been learning a lot about them in the last couple of years. A couple in particular. Um, and there was one interesting video by someone, a guy, and he was describing personality disorders, just kind of like, if you want to do a catchphrase for all personality disorders, because of course they're all, it's really in flex, and there's a spectrum. It's like if someone has narcissistic personality disorder, they might be like, everyone has maybe a little bit on the spectrum of being narcissistic, because maybe you need a little bit of narcissism to survive, for survival instinct,
Yep.
for example. But so to go a certain, it's I don't know, that threshold is still subjective too, but maybe you need to pass that threshold to say you have a disorder. But regardless, he was suggesting that personality disorders are like, he was suggesting that people with personality disorders have a really, they're very, very good at turning someone, or he said you, as in like the person that you're interacting with, if they have a personality disorder, they're really good at turning you into someone you've already met. So, for example, if someone was abused in their
Okay.
childhood, they will select that type of person, and they'll say you, every time they meet that person, or relationships are a perfect example. When you get into a relationship, it's like, oh, why am I so bad with women, or why are all men evil? Well, it's like, not all men are evil. You just keep picking the same person over and over again. So I think that's why I think that everyone has a little bit of this, but people with personality disorders, they kind of, it becomes this pathological kind of negative downward spiral within the relationships that they have. Um, so I was comparing that to putting titles on people, because, and putting titles on political uh, ideologues,
Yep.
because it's kind of like, okay, Ben Shapiro has this uh, projection. I'm not saying that he has a personality disorder, but there's a projection of one person, kind of, that he sees over and over again, that often what happens is that they are triggered by him. They come to him and try to like chase him down and call him an asshole or whatever. And, or at least that's from what I observe anyway. Um, but it's almost as though there's these people, and they really want, or like when you're talking about political ideas, it's almost as if it's like when you're calling yourself a leftist or a liberal or a conservative or right wing or whatever it is, it's almost like you're putting yourself into an archetypal personality, so that, and then once you engage with someone from those different perspectives, it's almost as if you've decided, okay, that's what you are, and this is what I am, and I'm going to ignore the other 99% of who you are, where you
Yeah.
came from. And I think that's always really challenging. I think we were talking about, yeah, yeah,
No, you're absolutely right. Everyone is on, a spectrum of different life experiences and behaviors, and this is why my core belief is that we're actually very, 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 very similar. Yet we are constantly given information to try and divide us apart because, man, so many people completely misapply my politics and put me into, oh, well, he's been a member of the NDP, therefore I like big government. I like to tax. That's not true at all. That's not even remotely true. In fact, I'm actually considering right now joining the Conservative Party in Nova Scotia, not because I agree with all of the conservative policies, because I want to go there and tell them, guys, you're fucking destroying the conservative movement when you keep talking like assholes. There's a lot of stuff that we need conservatives to come forward and say, yes, we do have to be cautious. But when you keep advancing the voices of the most heinous conservatives, because you have to admit, some of them are pretty fucking heinous. I'm talking about like the deep internet ones that put out some pretty hateful material about large groups of people. Anytime anyone says anything about a large group of person, they are 100% wrong. That is the truest thing because it's a large group of people. You just got to go like through the math of your life. I only have so many minutes in the day. I just do the math of how much time it would take to meet all 8 billion people on the planet. Impossible. You'll be lucky if you get to meet like 10,000 people in your lifetime, probably even less. That's like such a tiny fragment of the human population. Mm-hmm. So if you make a choice to say, oh yeah, all X are this, all Jews are this, all blacks are this, all this is that, whatever group you choose, you're wrong. And the one you choose there is like all men are what, pigs or something like that? You said all men are something?
Oh, like if a woman gets into a relationship with a man and they're always going into the next man and they're like, oh, all men are,
all men are shit. All men are pigs. Yeah. So if you decide to say all men are that, well, you're wrong. You're just 100% wrong. And you say all anything is this, you're always wrong, period. Yeah. That's the only thing I actually know to be right. Because it's as I can see through the mathematical evidence that if anyone makes a large generalization, they're wrong. Now you can do statistical studies on types of things, and you can determine with a certain amount of accuracy whether or not a tiny fragment of information is true or not. But you're still missing such a giant part of the spectrum, because even when you do a study, it depends on the question you asked, the words you asked in the question. You can take two questions that actually ask the same damn thing, change 2 words in that question, and come up with different results by a significant margin. So we never actually know what's true about large groups.
Yeah. The social sciences are, challenging to.
So the large group that we are is humanity. And all of us are wrong on a certain level about everything. And that's just the way it is. We're not meant to know everything. It's impossible to know everything. And this brings me to, I guess, I'll try to make this the last thing I say, because you know me, I'll just keep talking and talking. One of the reasons why I feel it's really important to jump online and say things is right now, in this moment, the by far largest human conversation is happening. COVID-19 has put all the conditions in place for a human conversation that is a magnitude of billions of bits of information larger than any conversation that's ever had in human history, because COVID-19 has touched upon every single issue you can think about, social, economic, everything. It affects everything. So that is a deep fundamental reason of why Do you want to be at home watching cat videos, or do you want to participate in the conversation?
Thank you, Darcy.
Not a problem, man. Thank you.
I love
Supper time.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a session in 8 minutes, so I got to prepare.
8 minutes.
Yeah.
Sweet. Enjoy your session.
Thank you.
Thanks for everything. We'll do it again.
Okay.
Okay. Cheers.
Enjoy your supper.
I will.
Bye.